Welcome back to Readability. If you didn't know already, this is a kid podcast that's all about reading. Don't know a good book to read? Visit Readability and I'll help you out. Every Saturday, I'll either read, review, or recommend different books just for you. Lay back and listen to this week's episode. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Readability. This week, I'll be reviewing a book I've recently read, if that's not obvious. I haven't read anything in a while, but thankfully I finished Radio Silence by Alice Osemen with my friend, so I have some things to talk about that book. I've only read 2 books on my Kindle, or make that 3 with this book, and I should do it more often. It's actually really fun, and you can highlight things on a Kindle and write notes, and that's fun. I have Kindle Limited, so I have access to so many good books, but I am currently in such a bad reading slump, so I don't feel like reading anything. Maybe by next week I can read something and have something to talk about. But we're here right now, so let's get a reviewing. Radio Silence is a contemporary novel following Frances Janvier, her journey with school and graduating to university. She's the head girl of the school, which is basically like the school's senior prefects. The school is set in the UK, so there's some terminology that you might not be familiar with. Anyways, there's a side to Frances that not a lot of people know about. She's a huge fan of this homemade podcast called University. She creates fan art and participates in the fandom within it. Once she meets the creator of University, her life takes a much different path than she anticipated. The book handles with a lot of serious topics that a lot of people can relate to: gifted burnout, sexuality, friendship, fandoms, and overall teenagers, and is really good. The author is Alice Osemen. There are around 417 pages. I say around because I read mine in a Kindle, and the physical copy might be different. The publishing brand is HarperCollins, and this is a standalone. Reading this book was pretty easy for me. And there were so many scenes and topics and characters that I loved, and the overall premise was really refreshing. However, the book didn't have any hit factor about it that would force me to push it to a 5-star rating. Personally, those kinds of books are just top tier, and this one is just below that. So I rated it a good 4 stars, which isn't a bad rating at all. It's actually a really good one. So it's not like I hate the book or anything. So yes, a solid 4 stars out of 5. Here's some pros about Radio Silence. So I think it was a very realistic portrayal of teenagers and the internet. Because of Frances's love for university, we see her on the internet a lot and also contributing to the fandom because she posts fan art, mainly on Tumblr and Twitter. And whenever we are on those platforms, it's very realistic to how people react and are on those sites. Also, in the description of the book, it says this quote: "You probably think that Outlet Last and I are going to fall in love or something. Since he's a boy, I'm a girl. I just wanted to say we don't. That's all." And even though I love romance in books, as I said many times before, I found this really refreshing and amazing for a book to do. It's rare for a book to portray this kind of relationship between a boy and a girl, because they always fall in love. But it's nice because most of the time it's pretty realistic, And finally, I'd say that there are very likable and realistic characters, with an exception of one. All of the characters in the book were realistic and likable enough to enjoy the story, which props to Alice Osemen because some books don't do that well. Obviously, Frances is going to be our more developed character because she's the main character, but that's not to say the other characters weren't. Alad, Daniel, Rain, those characters weren't built really well to fit the story too. I loved all of them, and I think she did a really good job. So I have 2 pretty quick cons about it. First was the slow build up in the middle. It wasn't until my friend pointed this out because we read it together, I didn't realize that the reason I kind of struggled through this book, because it took me 15 days to read it, that and because I was in a reading slump, but the middle was really slow. It started to drag out, and I started to get a little bored of the story. I mean, it wasn't the worst. I've had worse books with bad beginnings and middles unravel me. Let's not talk about that. But it's still something to note. It wasn't the worst, but it was still bad enough to note. And also, there was some odd, like, in real life conversational dialogue. Again, my friend pointed this out. In my opinion, I still found it to be good. Like, you know, the conversations were still, like, realistic. But this is just a disclaimer for those interested in reading it. There might be some dialogue that comes across as kind of weird. I think she really stands out when it comes to, the author stands out when it comes to, like, conversations over the internet, because those are so much more realistic. Alrighty, time for some spoilers. I'll be kind of doing a mix of just rambling on about not really a scene, but a character, and sharing some of my favorite quotes. Very few, though. Let's get started. I wanted to talk about Alad's mother, Carol. I think that was her name. Oh boy, she had some scenes that made me angry. First, the fact that she looks like a Karen, or like an annoying mom, that's chef's kiss, because it matches her personality. Rude and annoying. Okay, but that's besides the point. Our first, look into what she's capable of was the hair cutting scene. So basically, Alad was kind of growing his hair out just a little bit longer, like below his chin, around that area. And it's making me mad just thinking about it. And so they're sitting like in their kitchen, I think, and Francis is there, obviously. And she's like, hey, you should cut it because it'll look nicer. He's like, oh, well, I kind of wanted to grow it out. And you know what she does? She takes scissors and cuts 2 inches of his hair off. Without his consent. Just like that. Right in front of Francis. And she's just like, oh, see, it looks so much better. Like, what? First of all, talk to your kid first. If he doesn't want it, maybe you can negotiate or something. I don't know. Like, respect him. He can make his own choices, you know. He's like 18. He's going to university. You don't have to make the choices for him anymore. You know? Like, oh my gosh. Like, why would you do that? Why would you cut off 2 inches of his hair without his consent, just like that? And he didn't get a say. Oh my gosh. The next thing that's just the first layer. Next, when Alad comes from university for Christmas break anyways, doesn't matter. Carol put his dog down. She killed his dog. What? And how he found out was that he literally, Alad, when he heard from his mom, they went over to his house and Francis overheard him like scream from outside the house. Because he loved that dog so much. And she killed him. What? And her excuse is like, oh, I couldn't take care of him anymore. There were other options. I think you could have come up with a better choice than to kill your dog. Also, she didn't tell him at all. She just killed him and put him down without nothing else. Not telling him, not asking him if it was okay. Like, do you just not care? Okay. Next was fixing Alad's room when he was in university. So Francis went over to Alad's house to ask, like, hey, is he okay? And Carol obviously answered, because of course she did. And she was like, oh yeah, I fixed up his room because it was like a little messy. And when Francis went in his room, she said it was completely like white. Like okay, so I'm pretty sure he had like a galaxy ceiling, like, painted on his ceiling, which, first of all, didn't he put effort into that? Like, he made it himself, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, and she painted over it. What? Why? Oh my gosh. And she, like, she threw away all of his stuff to make it look nicer while he was in university. It just, like, this is his room, not yours. Like, just let his room be. You know, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why she would do that. He's old enough to make his own choices. Oh my gosh. Anyways, next, oh my gosh. And this is kind of the last one, not really. So Aled tells a story, because he has a twin sister, Karis, and he tells a story about his mom didn't really like Karis's choice in clothing, which I guess that's fine. You can have, your, your preferences, but instead of, like, doing literally anything else, she burned her clothes. Carol burnt her daughter's clothes in a fire and let her daughter watch. Like, and then to add more to that horrible situation, Karis, like, had this specific, like, clothing item that she really liked, and I think she was, like, young. I think she was, like, 13. Like, she was pretty young. Maybe younger than, I don't know which age she was, but she was, like, younger, than what she is, like, now. And, oh my gosh. She, like, really liked this article of clothing, so she reached her hands into the fire. So thinking about that, she might have been, like, even younger than that, because I don't know why. If she's, like, a little bit older, it doesn't matter. She reached her hands into the fire to get it out, and she burnt her hands, and her mom didn't do anything about it. Oh my god, it just makes me so angry. Like, you could have, this still isn't good, but you could have donated her clothes. You know, that's better than burning them. You could have given it to, like, a Goodwill. I don't care. Like, do anything better than burning them. She let her own child burn her hands. And then, to top it all off, she verbally abuses her kids and sets them on this really high pedestal that just lots of pressure on her kids that they just can't. Karis ran away because of her mom. And Aled was like, he wanted to stay at university because he didn't want to go home to his mom. Like, that is just a really bad relationship. Anyways, next we have some quotes I liked. This book is, like, kind of sad. So it's, like, a few of these might be kind of sad. But the first one was, like, it's sad to read after finishing the book. It says, I was clever. I was the top student in my year. I was going to Cambridge, and I was going to get a good job and earn lots of money. I was going to be happy. This is sad, knowing she doesn't get into Cambridge. She doesn't get into her university. Boy. That's rough. I'm sorry, Frances, that you didn't get to Cambridge. She thought she was going to be happy, but, well, that's not true. It was kind of a happy ending, so. But still. Next, I'm pretty sure this is, Karis talking to, Frances. I just want somebody to listen to me. I don't remember when she left or anything else she said apart from the 2 minutes later when she stood up and said, nobody listens to me. I only wanted to share that one because it gives me Enrique vibes from The Gilded Wolves. Nobody ever listens to him. But also, this is really sad. Like, I feel bad for her. And also, it reminds me of Dear Evan Hansen, the musical. So that's it. The next one is another sad one. I kept peeling off layers of my personality, but I seemed to be going in circles. Every time I thought I worked out what I really enjoyed, I started to second guess myself. Maybe I just didn't enjoy anything more. Anything anymore. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Oof, that's rough. And to top it all off, I'm only doing 4. This one is not really sad, but funny and probably me in the future. When Frances finds Karis after she, disappeared, she was only 3 months older than me, but she was 10 times as adult. She had done job interviews, she paid bills and taxes and drank red wine. I could even make a doctor's appointment by myself. And that is probably going to be me in the future. Let's just say that. And that's it for this week's episode of Readability. I hope you enjoyed, and I had a lot of fun reviewing this book because I had a lot of fun reading this book, and hopefully next week I can read something good to review so that next week we'll actually have a good episode. Not like this one was bad. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Keep reading, folks. Bye-bye.